Let's now take a legal deep dive into the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell. Criminal defense attorney Hector Diaz of Diaz Law joins me now. Hector, we heard a lot of details coming from Rachel Smith, who you just saw right there. That's the prosecutor in Lori Vallow Idaho murder case. A lot of the things that she said was very insightful. So I want to tackle each one bit by bit. First off, she was talking about how Lori is a narcissist, that she's manipulative, she's calculating. Even in the Dateline interview with Keith Morrison, he called her flirtatious. You've seen enough about her, both in court and in interviews. What is your perception of her?
Well, I mean, where do we start? It's, she's unique. She's unique because she has had exposure to the judicial system during that first trial, right?
In Idaho.
Right. And so as a layperson, no doubt she's had the opportunity to kind of, in her mind, think how I should act, how I should behave, what might get me some kind of success in the, in this criminal process. But she does. She comes off very smug, very arrogant, very kind of, I had a chance to kind of see her in court, and, it's almost a sense like she thinks she's a lawyer. Like she is there at the table. Now, albeit she is representing herself,
right.
But this isn't a person that went to law school. This isn't a person that sat for a bar examination or has had some kind of training. But yet, the way that some of the clips of her there in court, she is to some extent trying to hold her own, but strategically she is already. I mean, there's some decisions and things that she has said in court that are just falling short.
Yeah, and we're going to play some of that in just a bit. But I want to bring up this rack belt that we have seen and heard a lot of. That's this kind of stun gun belt that Vallow has been wearing with her regular clothes instead of her jail clothes. So we want to show you, here's what like a typical rack belt looks like. Now, it's also, again, known as a stun belt. We don't know if this is the exact kind of belt that Lori is wearing, but do you think that Vallow would actually try to flee? I mean, is this necessary for somebody like Vallow?
They do employ it. They do use it. I have been in court when somebody has tried to, whether it's being at sentencing or after a verdict, trying to leave, trying to.
And they used it.
So not used it. I don't know that they had to use it. And there are different mechanisms that I've seen used. They've had a brace that they put on the person's leg, but I think that got to be where it was very obvious. So you can see a brace in the pants and whatnot. But they will use it if they need to use it. But typically there's also guards there.
Right.
If they know there's
which in this case there is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're aware of that, and the court's aware of that, and so I can't imagine that she would try to run. She wouldn't get very far in that court system.
Exactly. But is that protocol, though, for someone who is defending themselves, right? Is that protocol that they always have to wear, some kind of electronic device in case they do flee?
If they're in custody. So Lori's in custody right now. And because she's in custody, she is required to have that mechanism in place because, there's that concern if she gets up, because they aren't going to have her handcuffed. She's not shackled there. And when she's in court for other appearances, she may have, she may come in chains and, there's that level of security here so that the jury isn't prejudiced, right? So the jury is able to see her in plain clothes.
Right. As a person, not as a criminal.
Right. And so what they're doing is they're trying to still have that safety and that concern that she is an in custody defendant, but yet preserve her, her innocent till proven guilty rights that she has.
Okay, I want to talk about the prosecutors, and again, this goes back to what Rachel Smith was saying. She thinks that prosecutors will have a huge challenge. Why is that? I mean, what is their strategy? What must they prove?
Well, I mean, they have to prove the conspiracy to commit murder, right? And I think, sometimes prosecutors, when they look at a case, they also recognize that there are other issues like the doomsday, the religious undertones here, a lot of these other facts. And I think that they recognize that some of the jurors that were selected, they have some understanding, whether from TV or from watching, and while they're told, hey, listen, you're going to put aside all of these concerns. People are human, right? So they have heard something about Lori Vallow and something about who she is. And I think what the challenge that this Idaho prosecutor was talking about is just keep it on task. Prove the elements of the offense, establish it that she and another person had an agreement, came together, conspired to commit this murder that occurred in Gilbert. And, and it seems simple, but here you're going to have a person now, and that no doubt not lost on the prosecutor, who is going to want her story to come out. I mean, we saw in some of the jury selection, things that were going on there, that she was talking about the jury's role and what the jury's role is. It's to protect her, and it's to protect her from the judge and the prosecutor.
Yeah.
And the judge quickly, stepped in and said, no, that's actually not the juror's role.
Right.
And so Lori Vallow has, in her mind, made up that she's innocent and that she's being railroaded and that this is a farce. And so I think the challenge is for the prosecutor to kind of rebut some of that and stay the course.
Okay, you talked about the judge. I want to show viewers now, there was an exchange that Lori had on Monday with Judge Justin Bareski. Vallow tried twice to get her case dismissed. The judge denied both of those motions. Here's what happened in court.
Like the state is trying to say, okay, if you want your speedy trial, guess what? We're not going to let you defend yourself. Guess what? You can't have any experts. And guess what else? You can't have any witnesses. You can't have anybody speak in your behalf. So good luck. Have a nice day.
All right, well, that's why attorneys sometimes take a long time to prepare for a trial, because they need to give notice of what all the testimony their witnesses are going to give. They need their experts to prepare reports. That's why your prior attorneys and your current attorneys were asking for more time to prepare the case. So you can't really have it both ways, that you want your speedy trial rights, but you don't want to give notice to the other side of what your evidence is. Maybe on a piecemeal basis, but I don't
Change kind of took a
it's
lot
not
of
gonna be
us
a
by surprise.
situation
First of
where-
all, it seemed a little contentious.
Right.
I believe in court you're supposed to be very respectful with a very,
We try.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I mean, what do you make of that? What was she getting at in terms of, just trying to get her evidence?
The argument that she was trying to make would work on another planet. I mean, she's basically, she wants her cake and she wants to eat it too. She wants her speedy trial right.
Right.
But she's also saying, hey, listen, I'm not going to have my right to be able to present the evidence that I need to present to defend myself in this expert testimony. And the judge is saying to her, well, no, you actually can continue this trial date. We can, this is what defense attorneys will do from time to time when they're not ready, because these are really complex, serious allegations that take time. And, you may want to pause and continue it. And what she's saying is, well, no, because that violates my speedy trial rights. And, I've heard some other clips on this where she's basically saying, there's a housing issue that we have here. Well, yeah, you're in jail. I get it, but you're not getting out. You're serving a life sentence in Idaho. So really, it's not like, waiving that speedy trial right and doing the trial correctly is going to cause any kind of issue for you, right? And so it was bizarre. It was really bizarre. And I, listening to it, I think the judge was, in this case, Judge Bareski was trying to explain to her, this is where lawyers come in, because in these kinds of situations, time will often favor the defendant in allowing them to get ready for trial.
Do you think she'll testify?
No, I don't. There was some back and forth here. If she testifies, there's an issue on whether or not her Idaho convictions would then be allowed to be presented to the jury. And so, if she's got any sense of, any kind of common sense, she isn't going to testify. But that puts her in a really difficult situation, because that jury may sit there and want to know, well, we want to hear your story.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't come out, that's going to be a problem.
So I want to talk about the jury now, because now, again, they're seated. It took only a day of questioning. Next day, they're in. The speed of that really surprised a lot of us, okay? So there are 16 jurors, 13 of them are men, 3 are women. I mean, not only did the speed of seating them surprise us, but also the makeup, predominantly men. What does that tell you?
It tells me that Lori Vallow stepped in and, took over this jury selection. I think that, just thinking about it rationally, that, she played a role here, ultimately was able to kind of talk with her, her advisory council, the lawyer that's there with her, and they looked at it. There were some probably challenges for cause, meaning there were some jurors that they felt like could not be fair and impartial for things that they said. Maybe they knew too much about the case, or couldn't be fair and impartial, would side with law enforcement, whatever it might have been. But I think Lori, at the end of the day, looked at some of these and said, okay, I like this juror, this juror, this juror, this juror. And what, having the more male than female suggests to me, kind of in only Lori Vallow kind of view, that she feels like a male jury might look at her and try to save her, or that she can talk her way out of what occurred. I mean, there's been accusations that she manipulated, men before.
Right.
For whatever reason.
But doesn't the prosecution side also have a say in who?
No, it does.
In the jury as well. I mean, it's not just all her picks.
Of course not. But there's some strategy in the back and forth that goes on, and when you're on the prosecution side, what will happen sometimes is they'll say, hey, you know what? Let's leave this. Let's go ahead and not challenge this for cause this juror and see what happens and see if maybe they go ahead and choose them. And that prosecutor might say, this one might favor us, actually. So Lori's looking at it in terms of maybe too superficial, where the prosecutor is actually maybe spending some time listening to what they're saying in terms of whether they can be fair and impartial. It's a really, really complicated process, but it is odd how fast that jury was selected.
Right. Okay, Hector, we could go on and on.
Yes.
But I know we're going to have you back again for more deep dive on this trial that starts on Monday. All right, you can count on 12 News, 12 Plus, and 12news.com to provide you with continuing coverage of Lori Vallow Daybell's trial on air and online. We'll be live streaming throughout the entire trial exclusively on 12 Plus. We'll also have daily recap and analysis about what happens inside court. Again, that's exclusively here on 12 Plus. We'll be right back.